everyone, and welcome to the Monday, May 5th, 2025 Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. Edna is away, will not be attending, and Sean is running a little late, but we have a quorum, and so we'll be able to proceed with the meeting as scheduled. You've all seen the agenda. I don't have any changes to the agenda. Anybody else? Anything coming up?
I have two additions at the end, just some discussion items for site visit scheduling and just a quick announcement about the status of workforce housing.
Okay. Site visit schedule and workforce housing.
Alder Kill, Article 17.
I was going to put those under correspondence and announcements, so I didn't think that it changed the agenda, but I will be making two announcements at the first part of the meeting this evening. You have all received Jim's meeting notes. Do you have any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I ask for a motion to approve the meeting notes?
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. You have the draft format for the April 21 minutes. Any corrections or additions? If not, may I have a motion to approve the April 21 minutes?
So moved.
Motion. Second, Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Two items of correspondence and announcements. The first we received this afternoon, although it's not on the agenda for tonight, a request from Swiss and Prinz to continue the public hearing. You may have seen that. We are suggesting that since they're waiting for on the 90-day DEC jurisdictional determination, that we actually schedule it for the July meeting and push it out to July 21st. Does that make sense to everybody? So if we can do that tonight, then Gretchen will be able to post it as we have been doing recently. So may I have a motion to continue the Swiss and Prinz application till the July 21st meeting?
So moved.
Motion. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Some of you who are new to the board will not have been around during the Alderkill application, which went on for some time and was subject to Article 78 and some other legal issues. So I have a statement to read regarding that. The planning board and the town are pleased to announce that they have successfully defeated two challenges to the planning board's grant of preliminary approval for Rhinebeck's first conservation subdivision. The planning board and the town are pleased to have successfully defeated these challenges, which sought to have the land developed into a conventional cookie-cutter subdivision. These victories helps achieve the goals of Rhinebeck Town Comprehensive Plan and its zoning law. These victories will allow the proposed Alderkill Conservation Subdivision to proceed to final subdivision approval. This conservation subdivision will serve as a model for other subdivisions to come, and the victories in these cases will ensure that the subdivision's proposed plan to protect and preserve 45 acres of open space packed with natural resources will be carried out. This is recently issued. We are certainly very pleased, and I would like to offer my personal, as well as I'm sure the planning board's, thanks to John and Kim, who did an enormous amount of work on defending the planning board in this case. So this is good news for conservation in the town of Rhinebeck, and Jim also was very instrumental in working with them throughout that whole process. So we have not been in touch personally with Mr. Alderkill. He's not, it's Mr. Duncanberg, sorry. I still think of him as Mr. Alderkill. Apologies, Carl. I assume we'll be hearing from him in the future in terms of scheduling, getting him back on the agenda to move that forward. So that concludes my announcements for this evening. We have no new applications, so we'll move now at 6:05, bless you, we can move into the public hearing portion of this evening's meeting. The first is that of Edwin and Mary Jo Henke, 11 Jones Street, site plan review for the construction of a sunroom and a mudroom. Warren, I believe that's you.
Good evening, Warren Smith, architect, representing Ed and Mary Jo Henke in 11 Jones Street in Rhinebeck. This is a house we figured about 1870, a little earlier than I had thought when we were there. For many years, the front porch on it actually was sort of treated as a back porch. It was totally enclosed by lattice, as one can see in the National Register photo nomination from the 1970s. But anyway, on the back of the house, the real back of the house, there is a slab that runs from one end to the other, and at one time, apparently, there was a tent over that. So it sort of served as a patio, but it also had an entrance directly to the kitchen. The current owners would like to remove the slab that exists there and build essentially a one-story addition. It will be a mudroom entry because the driveway comes off the side of Jones Street here. There's a garage here and existing bluestone steps up to that slab, and then the entrance to the kitchen is in the back. They wanted to make a functional mudroom, relocate a small half bath from one end of the kitchen into that mudroom, and then the rest of that first floor will be a sunroom, windows at two sides. And then above that, in the middle, there's a large dormer that will be a bathroom for the primary bedroom. Right now, there's one bathroom upstairs in this corner that has doors from 2 bedrooms, and that's the only full bathroom in the house. Their intention is to use that existing bathroom to serve 1 bedroom and create a new bathroom for the other bedroom. And there's a small room in the front corner, the northeast corner, that is tiny and doesn't have access to the bathroom without going through a bedroom, but nonetheless, it's a bedroom. So we're not changing the bedroom count in the house. We're adding a bathroom, but that's not a concern because it doesn't need more people to use it. And we're proposing to put this one-story addition in the back as a sunroom and get the mudroom entry from the driveway. Along the way, the front porch, which is no longer enclosed in lattice, will receive some railings, guardrails, and new railings on the stairs, just to make it a little safer for people to use. And you can walk from those stairs across the lawn to Vanderbilt Street, but there's a hedge along the street. But the primary entry that the family will use will continue to be that side entry to the bluestone steps, which will be rebuilt to accommodate the access to the mudroom at the back. But that is the gist of the project. The other important things to note are the house has almost all its original windows, not obviously in the addition because this is new, but the original double hung windows, you can tell from the very fine muntins and the glass and so forth. And right now they have the traditional triple track storms and screens over them. Those will be removed, and wooden storm windows will be added to all the original existing windows. So that's a little better. And then on that other side of the house that you just had an image of, there are 2 non-original windows. Right now there's a small window here at the kitchen sink, which is a casement, and a very large casement upstairs in the primary bedroom. The intention is to make this window in the kitchen longer and match in height the double hungs. It will still be a casement because it's across the kitchen sink, but it will have the pattern to mimic the double hungs elsewhere in the house. And then this large window upstairs will actually get a little shorter to again match the height of the other double hung windows. That, for egress reasons, will also be a casement, although this rendering doesn't show it. But if you really lean on the window manufacturer can make a simulated check rail that will make that horizontal rail thicker, just as they can make a simulated casement in a double hung, which was a very popular thing here at one time in the Victorian era. But so those will look like double hung windows, and they will be more in scale with the other windows in the house than the ones that are there right now. So that's pretty much the intention of the work. The house is wood siding, or the addition will be wood siding, and the owners want to replace the existing asphalt shingle roof with a metal roof, which will also be on the addition. That's pretty much the extent of the project. The one other thing I will say is that right now there is a little shed behind the house. When we put this addition on, sort of crowd the shed. So the shed is going to move around to this location, which in fact is the location where there used to be a chicken coop, I understand. So there's still a slab here. We're going to replace the slab, but we're moving the existing shed from here to here, but keeping it. And then there'll be a new patio, bluestone patio behind the addition. That's
We're in the pre-con, I'll ask for the site visit in a minute. When
Yeah.
we're in the pre-con, we spoke about was there desirability for railings on those back steps? And they said they would look at that, but it doesn't look like they.
Well, actually, the grade rises along the side of them, so there could be a rail just to have something grab in wet weather or slick weather, but they basically run up at grade. So we didn't plan for a rail there. One that basically at grade steps.
If they wanted to add that in the future, would they have to come back, or would that be considered just a minor change? I'm only speaking for myself.
Right. I would think that a very simple metal rail, black metal rail, would probably be what you want.
I'm just imagining carrying up bags of groceries.
Yeah, no, I understand. Right.
I'm sorry, but you know.
I'm sympathetic to that, but that isn't one of the client's requests, so I'm not proposing that. at this
I just
time.
wanted to cover that again because,
Sure.
you know, it would seem silly if they had to come back for a railing in the future. But I will let it go the way it is, but that's still, it would be an amenity I would
It's
personally
a
want
very legitimate concern.
for myself. Jim, did you have anything?
No, nothing since the last time when we talked about the fact that it's mostly consistency with historic preservation and character of the neighborhood.
Who did the site visit?
I was there, as were some of the members of the CAB, and had a good look at the house. It's a nice, it's a good-sized lot for Rhinecliff, but much of the openness and the largeness of the lot is situated toward what's going to be the front porch, which is, this elevation. And that's not really going to be impacted. The changes are around the back of the house. Warren did share the historic write-up from either the National Register nomination, and it didn't really say much in terms of what the character defining features are of this house. It doesn't have a tremendous amount of historic integrity that I think would be in jeopardy by this addition. There are some ghosts of windows where windows have been changed or eliminated and filled in with the same novelty siding that you find on the rest of the house, it's kind of an interesting feature, and I don't know if you had any intention of paying tribute to that or.
One up there that actually became a bathroom a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's going to be obliterated by the addition. And around the side where the enlarged window is going in, that smaller window did have a bigger window, and the shadow for that is there. But yeah, the suggestions that are being proposed, I think, bring a little more coherence to this house. So I think that's beneficial. I did spend some time looking at the historic aerials, and it seems like there had been a roofed addition on the back of this house until about 2020.
Really?
Yeah, there was something with a roof over it, and in 2021 it's gone.
Okay.
And so, this was around the time when you needed to get a demolition permit for a house like this for demolishing an addition. And I don't think that was ever filed.
And that wouldn't be the canopy?
Well, I was told it was like an awning or canopy. Maybe it was a hard metal awning.
It's possible, yeah.
I don't have any photos of it.
Right, but there is a substantial slab there, but that's going to be abandoned in favor of one that's a little bit higher to give you an at-grade access, and that all seems to make pretty good sense. I was concerned about the placement of the little playhouse that's behind it. It was a cute little addition, but it seems from the aerial photographs like that, it probably wouldn't be the first time that one's been moved.
Very possible.
It seems to have kind of migrated around the site, so it's yet another thing that kind of goes with the mix. The addition of the porch railing, I don't think that's being done for code reasons. You said that was more elective than anything else.
Well, 30 inch is sort of the maximum without a railing, but they're concerned about children.
Yeah.
And, even adults can stumble and fall off something, and 30 inches is plenty of distance to break your neck.
Yeah, nobody wants to even fall from
Yeah.
26 inches. It's,
Right.
It
Right.
could be injurious. So, by and large, I think it makes a lot of sense. It would be fun to learn a lot more about the individual history of this house and what it might have had in terms of, brackets or large boards or things like that, which it kind of looks like it shouldn't have
Could
them,
have had
but
brackets.
I think it's a perfectly sound choice to leave it as it is, without having that abundant background information.
Right.
And in terms of the larger waterfront district, it didn't really seem to have a bearing on the integrity of that. It seems to be in keeping with the surroundings and context.
Did we get a CIB report? I don't think we did. did we?
No.
Okay, but those that were in the field with you, were there any?
I was there with Tony and no one voiced any objections. And HAPAC representative was there as well. Not just one, somebody else.
Did Catherine and Ron Kolar over there? I don't know if they submitted something.
I don't think we got anything from them back then. Okay. Thank you, Greg. Planning board members, any questions or comments? All right, is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? If not, could I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention. Jim, you have a draft approval resolution?
Yes, I do. Draft approved resolution for the board's consideration for the application by Evan and Mary Jo Henke for site plan special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125. 7265 and Section 69 for construction of the sunroom, mudroom, with siding that matches the house, relocation of a shed, installation of new wooden storm windows, replacement of 2 non-historic windows, installation of a metal roof, construction of exterior steps and a flagstone walkway, as well as changes to the interior layout of 11 Jones Street within the RCH zoning district, the RC overlay, reaffirming the actions type 2 for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. With respect to the application for special use permit, finding the work and intended use is consistent with the general standards, and granting the requested special use permit, conditioned upon site plan approval, and with respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use is consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, and approving the application inclusive of the materials by Warren Temple Smith Architects, LLC, dated February 21st, 2025. Authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan upon the satisfaction of the 3 items listed there. And noting that in taking this action, the planning board authorizes the planning board secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant along with details on next steps required to finalize the process, and reminds everyone that this plans, sketches, and other materials submitted to the Town of Rhinebeck Building Department must match those that were submitted to the planning board.
And a motion to accept the approval resolution.
So moved. Second.
Motion, second, I'll poll the board. Greg?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Sharon?
Yes.
Louise?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Good luck, Warren. The second public hearing scheduled for this evening is at Barry Impner, 41 Violet Hill Road, site plan review, reconstruction of an existing porch.
Good evening, my name is Lauren Claus. I am the project manager for the Art of Building, and I'm here to represent my client, Barry Antner, this evening, who is at this property at 41 Violet Hill Road. The proposal is to remove the existing 6 by 25 foot front porch and to rebuild it in kind. The purpose of this undertaking is that there are no footings currently, and so that the porch has started to settle and there is evidence of rot in numerous locations. The house is, of course, part of historic significance on Violet Hill Road, where the violet farming industry in Rhinebeck began. The house was built probably around 1890. And that was what was written in the building inventory structure report at the site visit. I had an interesting conversation with George from the CAB, who thought it might have been a little earlier. But we believe that all of the decorative portions from the posts and up are original to the house, most likely. If you go to the next slide. If you go back, actually, Yes, this one. Yeah, so here's some photographs of the issues that we're facing. You can see the top, on the right-hand side, the top photo, there are no footings. So we have settlement and water damage. You can see that the ledger does not seem to be properly attached to the house. The framing material is pressure treated and dimensional, which potentially dates it around to World War I, when national standards for dimensional lumber were established. So we feel that it's very unlikely for it to be original, but it could be as old as the 20s. So on the right, on the top,
Lauren, I'm just a moment. We already did the site visit and reported on that last month, is that correct?
the site visit was 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
and yeah, so I
Keep
don't
going.
know. Sure, no problem. So some rot at the base of the posts and the damaged fascia and floorboards on the bottom right. So the next, and then the next. Okay, so here's our proposed approach. So our intent would be to salvage and reuse whatever we can, particularly the decorative elements, the brackets, and any other ornaments of interest. So the only differences that would be that would be evident in the new porch would be that there would be footings, that there would be contemporary framing, and then visually, the one thing that might have some impact is would like to give it code compliant steps. The risers from grade up to the front porch are uneven and too high. So the fascia, roof, and ceiling are completely to remain, so we'll be shoring those up and removing everything below it. We'll salvage the brackets and any other elements of the original material that we can. The 4-inch high molding, the 6x6 posts to be replaced in kind, the same profile to the base caps and the bases, and the same profiles to the 3¼ inch tongue groove boards. Also, the rectangular lattice has a picture frame and 7½ inch fascia that's to be replicated exactly in kind. It's not exactly square, so it's not quite off the shelf, so we will be replicating this and building that custom. In front of the porch, you'll see that there are some mature boxwoods, and the intent is for those to remain. We're hoping to box around them and protect them while we're doing the work. If it's not possible, we'll remove them, put them to the side, and plant them again. But the intent is for no change in the appearance. To the next slide. And finally, I did do a little bit of research. Went to the town historic at Star Library. There was a Historic and Archaeological Preservation Committee report a few years ago. There's no archaeological concerns. There's some significant historic moments throughout the history of the house that should not be impacted at all. We have applied to the DEC for the jurisdictional approval on February 27th, so we're still about a month out from receiving that. Thank you.
Jim?
So like the last one, the only comments on this were just historic character, preservation, and consistency with the neighborhood and community. And I think the only thing we're waiting on is the JD from DEC or letter. So after the 100 days, you can apply, you have to submit a letter to them by certified mail, and they have 10 days to respond. And then if they don't say anything, then you'll get a 5-year clearance on this project.
That's interesting. I heard that if we just didn't hear anything, I didn't realize that there was that step that we had to write the letter.
Final step, yeah. If you don't hear within 100 days, or the 90 days, that's their time period to say something, but then you apparently need to submit a letter,
The
an actual
final
certified mail
verification.
letter to the main office, requesting them to make their final determination. If they don't, maybe go
If they
through
fail
this.
to reply, then we automatically get this 5-year.
Understood. Thank you.
At least that's what we've discovered as others before you have gone through this. Okay, the site visit, who conducted the site visit? I think we got a report from Edna.
It was Edna and George.
Edna and George, okay. I do know that Edna submitted the report. Yes. Jim, you wanted to sort of skim through it?
So,
High points?
Yeah, so I provided an update on, the house itself and the property, talked about essentially what we just heard now, the footings, how things will be replaced, the lattice being exact copy, talked about the rot, the old posts, talked about the shrubs, which we did hear about, possibly being dug up and moved if necessary, and then replacement construction is completed. She also agreed that apparently the tonguing group probably cannot be, for the most part, retained until they're being replaced. Did mention how the 3 steps are not at the same height, and they would remove the stone beneath to be 4 equal risers. So pretty much, I think, agreed with what we've heard.
Okay. I don't believe we received anything from PayPal. Any board members?
You had said something that turned on a switch in my head about the framing possibly being dating back to World War I because it's pressure treated. Explain a little bit about that.
Not so much because of the pressure treated, but because of the dimensional lumber.
Okay.
And so this is totally open for conversation. This was the research that I found. What I came up with was that dimensional lumber standards were established after the end of World War I, and so before that they would have been, true nominal size lumber. So the fact that these are, 1.5 by whatever.
Right, by the 10 would be like 9.5 by 1.5. And that,
Exactly.
that kind of changed throughout the 20th century. But the fact that it was pressure treated makes me feel like it's even more recent. Like maybe 40 years old at the most. Did you do any kind of investigation, other investigation like paint reveals, count the number of layers,
I haven't done that.
that sort of thing? Okay. Is there anything about the way that it's framed? Does it have like Simpson strong tie hangers, or are the joists sitting on a ledger that's separately nailed in?
You can see it in the photograph that ledger is not bolted back the way that our current codes would require.
Right.
There are no hangers.
And it's just kind of nailed into the side of the house
Correct.
with like 16-penny wire nails.
Mhm.
Okay. So not bolted in. And the overall dimensions are 1.5 by 9.5, or like 1 3/4.
It's 1.5 and then the top, I don't know what the overall depth is.
Anyway, I'm satisfied. So,
When we pull it apart, we'll, get a better look at it.
and you're going to be adding a riser, so instead of being 3 steps up, or 4 steps up to the surface, it's going to be 5. 1, 2. Yeah, it's going to be 4 steps.
The
That's
fourth
good.
step.
Yeah.
So there's currently a bluestone paver at the landing, which I would like to switch that out with another natural cleft bluestone paver, but the full width. I
Right.
think that would be more gracious and safer.
And it also seems like that bluestone has kind of worked its way down over time. Is there a gutter that goes around this little hip roof that's on the porch?
No, I don't think there is.
Okay, so water just kind of courses down there, and it's possible
Mhm.
that just absorption and erosion over time, and maybe freeze-thaw cycles that
Yes,
kind of cause that subsidence.
we will put down an appropriate gravel layer underneath. and
Is
some
that
drainage.
new step going to have its own footing, or is it, or pier or something like that, or is it just going to be built at grade?
Is the new step going to have,
Yeah, because you're going to come out, like where that
Mhm.
bluestone is, there's going to be a step.
we would give it a footing, absolutely.
So that will kind of get rid of that issue, because you can kind of see the naked concrete there, like it's on a slab, and it's
Yes,
not very appealing. So that sounds all very sensible, and not a dramatic change to the silhouette.
Other planning board members? DECJD. Did we close the public hearing on this yet? Gretchen, do you know? Is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? Is there a reason that we could not close the public hearing since we're just waiting on the...
Yeah, I think that you can close the public hearing if for some reason there's an issue that comes up with DEC, you can always open it again with that new information, but I would say you can close the public hearing.
Does anyone have a problem with that? May I have a motion then to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention? Then I would look for a motion to re-calendar this for June. Already, we'll be in June, in hopes that you get your DECJD by then. May I have that motion? Yeah.
Question?
Yeah.
So when, at that following meeting, should I plan to present again, or?
I don't believe you need to go into the detail that you did. In some cases, the last one this evening under old business is someone waiting for the same JD, and she has not been attending meetings, just waiting to get that, and then she'll be in touch with us and let us know they got it.
I
But
see.
we'll calendar you for next month in hopes.
Okay.
But
So I'll be in touch with Gretchen.
just be in touch with Gretchen in the meantime, and if you're nowhere, then she's probably just going to say there's no need for you to come.
Understood.
So we'll just take it one step at a time.
When did you say your JD? February?
February
She's in
27th.
February
27th.
27th. March, she's 2 months into it, so. All right, may I have that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Lauren. Third public hearing for this evening is that of Robert Torlo, 33 Grinnell Street, site plan and special use permit for improvements in existing non-conforming structures. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Rob Tortolo, homeowner, along with my wife Emma at 33 Grinnell Street, and we're here for site plan and special use permit application for the sauna addition, an existing greenhouse, and as part of this, a hot tub which is going to be in ground, about 18 inches exposed. We're digging that into the ground with a cedar surround, some stone walkways. There's a level 2 charger here, and I did some research into that and found a model. I've confirmed there isn't light or anything emanating from the unit. It's just a black, about this tall unit that has 2 charging ports on either side. So that'll kind of actually make it more contained than what we currently have, which is just wires running into the driveway. So it'll be underground cables. I did look into the septic and the leach fields. We're nowhere near that. All I could find was in Dutchess County you need to be at least 10 feet was the best I could find in terms of any specifications. So we're well outside of that. We're 25, 26 feet at the nearest point. There's also on this south side of the house, there are existing condensers that we're replacing, smaller heat pumps that would actually go in place of those condensers. I think that about covers it. There's an existing tree house that we're going to take down after some discussion with my wife and kids. Oh, and an electrical service upgrade. So we're upgrading to a 400 amp service, which is located near our generator in the yard. We are going to obscure that as best as possible with evergreens. So we have rhododendrons, arborvitae, and really around the entire property, including along the driveway here, we have arborvitae trees that are pretty much blocking any view of this from the road. And we're going to further fill a couple in, and as we have on the, there's a landscaping plan that shows some of the further plantings. In addition to that, there's some more screening that's going around with native plants and shrubs around, there we go, around the spa and obscuring the sauna. So it really should be pretty much not visible from the road and in keeping with the character of the house and the neighborhood. You know, we take our stewardship seriously and just making sure that, you know, everything that we build as improvements or everything that we add is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Had a site visit recently, but that's about it from my side. If there-
Do you have a cut sheet of that charger that you referred to?
I can send one. I actually have the sauna and the heat pumps here. I was just looking for the charger. I don't know why I don't have it in my notes, but I can provide that.
I think
Yeah.
you should have that in the file. Of
course.
As documentation
Yeah.
of what you intend to put in. Jim?
Nothing new, I just have two comments in terms of, when if we get to the approval resolution. One would be that I think we would add to our typical resolution that we are acknowledging that the treehouse will be removed either as part of this project or before the project takes place, just to ensure that that is part of what occurs since we've agreed to that. We'll add some notes about adding the cut sheets for the EV charger and heat pumps. And the other one that I did mention before is that this sheet, which is your landscaping master plan, do you remember the landscaping plan? Oh, this is the landscaping plan. So that's fine. I think when you submit this, you should remove this sheet because this does not line up with where it's actually going to be located. I just don't want to create any confusion in the building department when they go to this and see this sheet with your hot tub here, but all the other sheets have it over here, and then we have to try and figure out kind of what happened. So I would just recommend, if the board's okay with it, we just recommend sheet L100 be removed from the final
Or
submission.
reconcile.
Or reconcile, yeah.
Happy to have that reprinted. I mentioned it to the landscape architect, so she can just bump that over.
Yeah, if you can do that, then that would be great. 'Cause
I
I'm
would
sure it's
prefer
the
that
best
it be corrected.
Yeah.
To be in conformity with the site plan rather than just eliminated. Okay, planning board members, questions or comments indicated the site visit?
I did site visits and.
Alone, were you alone?
with
No, I was
Alicia.
there.
Okay, good.
You want to speak first?
You can go, go ahead.
Okay. One, it's a lovely lot. It's quite large. And he's very aware of the history of the place and he wants to keep the integrity of it. And I don't know, I think everything's being done, is being done well and it's thought out well.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. There's clearly a lot of really thought that's already gone into the screening of the lot that's really nice for the neighborhood in general. So that you could already see that you're not going to really see any of this. It feels like definitely not out of place, and it feels really thoughtful for the lot because it's a really spacious lot. So I didn't see any problems with it. And it is a really cute treehouse, but I get why it has to go. It is really cute.
It's gotta go, but
Gotta
you know,
go.
if it can come off intact and go to
That's what
some child.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, can it be repurposed as a kit for someone else or something?
That's up to you,
Yeah.
but, Sharon, anybody else, got any comments?
You said that you located the septic system, but it doesn't show on the drawings here. Where is it? What's the routing for the soil pipe? Because I think you're supposed to be 10 feet away from any part of the septic system.
Yeah, so septic tank is up here and the leach field is out here.
Okay, so how are they connected, and are they connected right under where you want to put the spa?
No. It's under where the stone path would be, so between the sauna and the spa, it would run over there.
I think that's kind of an important thing to have on the plans to show that you are maintaining that
Sure.
separation.
Yeah.
Also, where is the spa going to drain to?
It's a good question. I have to talk to there's a contractor who does the sort of spa installation, so I
Okay.
can find out, yeah.
I mean, you're within 1,000 feet of the Hudson River, you kind of need to know these things.
Yeah, of course.
And I was by there when we went to the Jones Street site, so that you can see it pretty well from Kelly Street. It is very open, and I saw your greenhouse. and,
Yes.
Things like that. So I appreciate the effort to do the evergreen screening and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
So, you just asked a couple of questions that we don't have complete answers for, I believe. That being, what will happen when you drain the water, and then the location of
The septic tank and the leach field and the sanitary one.
Certainly, I would think that those details should be on the plan. I don't know about the water question, but
Mhm.
I would think the details of the connection would be important. Did you look into that? I believe it was brought up before.
Into the septic. All I found was that there's a 10-foot restriction. You can't have any
But you're
electric
not showing
underground.
it on.
No, I'm not showing it on that. That's right.
Jim, what are your thoughts?
I'm not sure. I
Ken,
mean, the
what-
purpose is we want to make sure you don't hit a, you don't hit a line or anything, because that's going to create a mess, and then you're going to have to fix it. That's why we always ask for this stuff to be on the plans.
Yeah, and I think it's for the building inspector to determine that, right? When he does the plan review.
Well, yeah, to make sure that we don't have any issues, yeah, getting down on the ground.
I think it could be beneficial to include that. It's important information to have, and it's.
I agree with you. Is this something that we could do a conditional approval pending the addition of that information to the plan? Or would you prefer to have it right up front?
I suppose you could probably have it as conditional because it's it wouldn't really change too much of the plan if there's an issue, we'd have to come back, but I don't think waiting for it's gonna change it. I think,
But getting it on there will, as Craig said, benefit the building inspector.
yeah, I think so
in the
for sure,
future.
and also making sure that, I don't know if you wanna keep it, just to verify that cut sheet, the L100 is also adjusted properly
Right,
too.
right. How would you all feel about that, conditioning this approval this evening with that additional information being added? Do you understand where we're going with this?
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that.
Okay. Any reservations? We've received a number of letters of support from people in the community who echoed Delise and Tom's comments. And I will ask if there's anyone here in the public wishing to comment on this application. If not, then motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Jim, you can have a draft approval resolution with some modifications.
Additions, yeah. So the draft approval resolution for the board's consideration tonight for the application by Robert Turtle for site plan and special use permit under Common Code Chapter 125, Sections 72, 65, and 69, for review and approval of the existing greenhouse and shed, the installation of the electrical service upgrades, spa and barrel sauna, heat pumps, EV charging station, and walkways connecting the elements of 33 Grinnell Street within the RCH and RCO, reaffirming the action is type 2, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. With respect to the application for special use permit, finding the proposed work and intended use is consistent with the general standards for special use permits, and granting that requested special use permit. With respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, and approving the application materials by Toad Hall Studio LLC, which will have an updated date when we get that updated material. We'll need updated plans because we are going to condition the approval on adjusting sheet L100, which is a landscaping sheet. We're going to condition on ensuring that cut sheets are provided for the EV charger and the heat pumps, and condition it as well on adding the septic system information to the plans so that we know where that is. We'll also add a note acknowledging that the treehouse will be removed as part of this project or before the project is completed. And then authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the plans subject to the 3 conditions listed. And taking this action, authorizing the planning board secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant with details on next steps, and reminding the applicant that all plans, sketches, and other materials submitted to the building department must be the same as those submitted to the planning board, except for the changes that we mentioned as conditions mentioned.
So the removal of the treehouse, would that need to be accomplished before a CO was issued?
We need to do before they close out the right now.
And is that sufficiently detailed in there, that that's how we want it to be?
I'm going to add it. I have to add that into the investigation.
Okay, any comments or questions? May I have a motion to accept the approval resolution as modified?
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
second, call the board. Craig?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Sharon? Aye. And I vote aye. When you complete the additions and submit them, Gretchen, if you would forward those to Jim for his review, and once he says it's where he wants it to be, then I'll be able to go ahead and sign.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good luck. The next public hearing for this evening is that of Alexander Wright, 23 Houston Road. As far as I know, Jim, correct me, the Wrights did receive their DEC jurisdictional determination, is that correct? So, as you know, this has been going on for some time, and we had a recent meeting with the applicant to try and determine the next steps. Because, as you recall, this began with the issuance of a notice of violation for the removal of trees and shrubs in anticipation of the installation of solar panels on the house. The applicant's desire to move ahead with the installation of solar panels has been held up while the application was being reviewed for the notice of violation. And throughout that, we had seen reports from different consultants, including Hudsonia, that were contributing information toward a mitigation plan, which has been presented to you. We are working with the applicant to resolve some concerns about the payment of the Hudsonia bill, which is still outstanding. So we have had conversations, and we think we're very close to wrapping everything up so that Hudsonia gets paid, the notice of violation can be addressed, and then they will come back. I'd like to schedule them instead of this evening. This is with the approval and consent of the applicant to come back in 2 weeks rather than to wait a month. And if all of the pieces have fallen in place, we've been working with the zoning administrator through this because he and only he can lift the notice of violation and accept the mitigation plan that's before us. So that's, I think, do I have that all right, Jim? And I think I've covered the important bases there. So I do believe we're in a position this evening to close the public hearing unless there is someone here. I'll ask if there's anyone here. There have not been, we know there's been interest on the part of one neighbor, but that's on the record certainly, but no one else here wishing to comment. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and take this up in 2 weeks, agenda it for 2 weeks to see if we've been able to put all the final pieces in place. At which point, once we've done our piece, she's then able to go forward as allowed by the zoning law to apply for a permit to put in her solar installation. So I think I've covered the details. So may I have a motion to close the public hearing? Motion second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And now I have a motion to calendar them for 2 weeks out.
So moved.
And that date would be what, Gretchen?
May 19th.
May 19th. Have a motion, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up this evening is the application of Joel Herm, 443 Mill Road, site plan review for the abandonment of the micro hydro which was previously approved. Good evening, Joel.
Hi, Joel Hearn, 443 Mill Road. The only addition I have to the written response to the board's request that we already sent in is just got a letter today from Dutchess County Soil and Water Conservation District. They're fine with the planning plan that we submitted back in January. They did make one suggestion to go from black oak to a swamp white oak. Black oak is fine on the riverbank there, but swamp white oak would do a little bit better in the more riverine environment. So I'll give this to Ed. We'll send it electronically if you want.
Thank you for the materials that you sent.
Can you speak up?
I'm sorry, I said thank you for the materials that you submitted just within the last day or so. I don't know if planning board members have had ample opportunity to review it. Have you all seen the new materials from Joel, and have you had a chance to digest it?
I've not fully gone through it.
Okay. Jim, do you want to kind of review it? I know you have public comments. I will say, Joel, it came in quite late, and, you know, we usually look to have this information at this point in the process at least a week, if not 2 weeks, ahead of our meeting, so that members have a chance to talk about it. But let me start with Jim and let him go through it, and then we'll take it from there.
Just a couple things, we have been talking about this for quite a bit. Joel, we asked you to submit for jurisdictional determination, and you gave us this letter from DEC stating they didn't think any DEC permits were necessary. So what you're telling us is based on this, you don't think you cleared the DEC jurisdictional determination request by your equipment.
I'm sorry?
We asked you to confirm about the JD, jurisdictional determination of DEC. You provided us with this letter dated in April, stating you need section 401 or article 15, and it did state that there's no permit required by DEC. So we're in agreement then that this clears you from any necessary DEC permits.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure that. So that we have on the
But that
record.
replaces the new requests for DEC JDs?
Well, he has a letter from DEC saying that no permits are necessary for the project. So I think that clears us on all counts related to that.
Yeah, and very clear with them. I wrote them asking to make sure that the January 1st new guidelines didn't apply to this particular case, and they said they were definitely holding that into their determination that it did not meet the forward.
Well, I'm reading this when they say no permits required, and they just did this last month that we're clear. There's no permit from DEC, so we're fine. Just wanted to make that clear in a public setting. So I think we're good there. You know, there was a request for a fish ladder to be installed. I did see you put a note on here. I don't know if you could just explain this a little bit. You said you'd install it for the 26 juvenile glass eel upstream migration. I assume it will be put in and then kept and maintained in perpetuity, or what are your plans? Would it be just for 1 year?
This particular fish ladder, it's a fish ladder with attachment that we use to catch juvenile eels, count them, and then release them upstream from the barrier. And the juveniles are coming up from the Sargasso Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, and usually from about March to end of May, June, they've already gone up the tributaries. So this particular device is portable. So we just put it in, and usually 1st of March, and leave it there through June.
Is that acceptable to everyone? What's the question?
Is it there now?
Sorry?
Is it there now?
No.
No, it's not proposed to go until next year's season. I guess the only other question that I had, Joel, I had asked for you to put the silt fencing on a plan so we could just see what's going on. You did submit this picture showing silt fencing, but I'm a little confused, I guess, because silt fencing we're showing here seems like it is for the purpose of the construction vehicles going back and forth, but we had talked about silt fencing to make sure that none of the work that was being done would result in anything going into the creek. And so I kind of expected more of something like this, like a biolog that you're going to put up along the creek bed that would be below the work that you're doing to ensure we don't have anything going into the creek. Not necessarily, although I'm not saying that silt fencing up above for your staging materials is a bad thing, but there are ways of doing it. I assume we were talking about when I was discussing this, ensuring that the work done is not going to work its way into the creek. Usually by a biotube or some ground cover. So I guess I was just a little surprised. I know you installed it, we'd asked for it to be on the plans just so we could all be sure we're on the same page. But I guess this is more of what I was expecting. So I don't know if you have anything down there, if you had proposed it, but I think that was what I had in mind.
juncture between the topsoil and the actual river edge will be riprap. We could put in temporary silt fence at that juncture between the overburden and the riprap, which will be,
Which is kind of what it's
Yeah.
showing here, and that's acceptable, here it's showing silt fence behind rocks, riprap. There are different ways of doing it. I guess I just expected something that was going to protect the work being done
of course.
more than, I guess, the stuff that we see that's kind of uphill from where the work is being done.
So that can certainly be added.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that this needs to come out, it just.
I thought that was on the plan, but maybe I missed that myself, so we'll certainly put it on the plan, no problem. The silt fencing that we put in was at Sean's request from the last meeting.
Yeah, and I requested too. We definitely wanted silt fencing. I think my expectation was it would be between the work and the creek, not upland,
I thought
uphill.
Tim, our engineer, had put it on the construction drawings, if you will, but
Well, if not, I just want to make sure, because you said this is already here, I just want to make sure it is getting
we'll
installed.
get that into you this week. Updated plan.
I think I totally agree, like having the extra is great, but I think the real request was 2 meetings ago, can it go in immediately, because spring is coming? And here we are, like, those heavy storms are coming, so I would like to suggest, like, get it on the plans, but can we be sure it goes in right away? Because,
That's what the
yeah.
silt fencing that we put in a couple weeks ago is doing, is preventing the excavated material from getting into the Landsman Kill.
It's just the runoff will still, of the disturbed area can still move, right?
Right, that's why I was thinking
Yeah,
about something
I
like
think,
this.
yeah.
What's been
Exactly.
installed?
Sorry?
What has been
Let's go
installed?
back to the
Yeah,
picture.
just
That
the
picture
upper.
was installed since the last meeting.
Yes.
Okay, all right, just for clarification here, verifying what we're looking at, so.
Is there anything surrounding the spoil piles, the piles of rocks and stuff that are kind of like, from the perspective of this photo, they would kind of be over your shoulder?
Well, it's all rock, so there's no soil material that could be washed into the Landsman Kill.
It's all rock.
So
I mean-
you just indicated that you're going to update your plans? Is that what I heard you just say?
Just put in the silt fencing, which I thought was there, but apparently it's not.
Well, it may be on the plans, if you didn't show it from here, it just looks like this is what's installed. The idea was, the main concern was between the creek and the bank
Which will
edge.
be accomplished during the reconstruction of the bank.
But I guess if the idea was to put in silt fencing to minimize runoff into the creek immediately, and it's here, that's fine, but it doesn't do anything where the actual work has been done right against the edge of the creek. I guess that's all. So I agree with Elisa.
It would be
That needs to be-
impossible to put a silt fence in here because since the stop work order, there's water going through here and it's almost a 90-degree bank. So if we want to stop any more clay going into the Landsman Kill, I would suggest that we go ahead and do the restoration immediately.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just saying, when something like this can be done, and this is a work in progress, with the ground cover, and these tubes can be put down and.
That's a very gentle slope, and I would agree with you if there was potential soil infiltrating into the Landsman Kill. Go back to my picture.
So,
If there was any chance of putting in a silt fence here because of loose soil that could go into the Landsman Kill, I would certainly do it. But right now, this is all rock at the river's edge. So it'd be pointless to put a silt fence south of this point. The danger of what I can control anyway, of soil getting into the Landsman Kill is what we put in.
no, I think it needs to go in as soon as possible. I don't know that I agree. I think that bank could be undercut pretty easily in a big storm and that would wash all that
I'd
soil
like to
out
see it
and
in
take some
before
of the trees, but.
we conclude this. I'd like to see it in before we
I don't want to speak for Sean, my very clear recollection was concerns about the disrupted area that already exists and running off into the bank, because so much disturbance has been happening and water's infiltrating that area. And we were worried about it getting into spring. And so now we're here, and I feel like it's pressing and an important barrier. It might be a little complicated, but I think we have to protect it.
So, I mean, I'm just gonna throw this out there, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but if we were asking Joel to do this, and we'd have to coordinate probably with the building department, could we start with, you know, the riprap that was gonna go back in, put that biofencing in, like ASAP, and just kind of working through the final details? Kind of do a stepped approach, you know, asking to do something similar to this, to protect that area, to the extent feasible. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not an engineer, so but I've done a number of these reviews, so.
Time is of
Yeah,
essence,
okay.
which
Yeah,
I.
We understand.
No, absolutely, I agree with you, that's the issue, we want to try and get this in.
I actually,
So-
personally, I kind of like that approach of kind of working a little bit to get it started, because I think that, as Delise said, you know, we're already got a lot of rain this weekend.
More this week.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make sure that we also are understanding what's going on, and that whatever is being put in is acceptable for the board and also for the mitigation purposes. And, you know, the longer it goes on, without that specification or perfectionism, the more damage is happening. So I think that if we can start trying to mitigate this as soon as possible, but I think there are still open questions that have to be answered. So if we can start with the mitigation, get that moving, and that at least can help preserve what's there.
Enough to stabilize, you know,
Yeah.
what did I say, stabilize enough to, you know, like by putting in the biologs, put enough material, enough of the initial work to be able to put in the biologs so it's still
Right, because this is
stabilize what's
also
there, but not.
in terms of trying to mitigate a violation, so, you know, if it's done kind of in a stepped approach as opposed to just waiting for it to be finalized, I think that makes sense for the purpose of what we're trying to achieve by the decommissioning of this.
So we talked in the past about requiring the applicant to pay the fees and costs related to any professional consultant assistance that the town of Rhinebeck requires to inspect, administer, complete, and implement the approved actions. If that person were to be retained now, could they be involved in determining this first step? Is that an appropriate, you know, then the person is in place and able to consult with Joel as to this first step and also be the person that stays on as the inspector? Is that
Makes sense to me.
workable?
No, I absolutely, I think so. I mean, while we're, you know, figuring out whatever the details are, I think getting in there as soon as we can, you know, doing the preliminary work to stabilize it and be able to put in whatever silt fencing, I prefer the biolog that's reasonable and feasible, I think makes a lot of sense, but it had, you know, essentially it's starting the work of the plan, but, you know, as soon as the ASAP, as a sort of discussion last
I
night.
do not understand this because I've now had two professional engineers agree that the restoration plan is appropriate and to code, if you will. And if we really want to stop erosion at this site, I don't understand why Bosford can't do the full stream bank repair. It'll take just a couple of days and put in the silt fence and we'll be done with this. If that's the board's real concern, to stop erosion at this site, the best way is to do the full restore. It'll take a couple of days. Bosford is ready, although Frank Jr.'s in the hospital, but he should be out soon. Anyway, I don't understand why putting in a silt fence, which will be ineffectual, I guarantee you, the way to effectively stop the erosion
It
is
was
to...
asked for at the last meeting.
Sorry?
This was the direction of the last meeting. That's what Jim asked for, is certainly what Sean asked for.
You asked for a silt fence to stop turbidity going into the Lansing Kill, which we did 2 days after the board meeting.
I don't sense that everybody is confident in that statement, but where do you want to go?
I was just going to mention, I think one of the reasons we wanted a consultant involved was just so that everyone can rest assured that the putting back process, while we're sure you're hiring a professional, is just in a really thoughtful way. And that we can all just feel really, it's an important restoration. So then we all just feel like there's some eyes on it through the process.
I know, I don't mean to sound like we're parsing words here, but Mr. Bosberg is a contractor under your employee to do this work.
I'm sorry, I still can't hear you.
Mr. Bosberg is a contractor that you will be retaining to do the work, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Bosberg, you will be contracting with to do the work.
Yes, they did the original excavation.
Mr. Bosberg is not a consultant providing assistance. He is the
That's
contractor.
correct.
I'm making a distinction.
Okay.
So, and I also want to make the point that part of the reason this was being requested is that the zoning enforcement officer does not feel competent in this regard to be inspecting this kind of mitigated project. So Sean, we're welcoming.
Good timing.
We are discussing with Joel the situation, and particularly we're talking about the previous request for silt fencing, and Jim has explained to Joel that what Joel has put on the plans does not, well, Jim, I'll let you speak to it. He was expecting the mitigation to be somewhat different. And Jim, you want to repeat it for?
Well, yeah, so the silt fencing that's in, I think is good. It takes care of, the construction vehicles and things like that. I guess, Sean, what I was expecting was something more like this, that's between the creek and the work that had been done. And so we were just discussing if there's an interim measure to be done. But I think Joel is stating that the best way to do it is to just do all the work and get it done in a couple of days, which I'm interpreting to say you're asking for approval, which is not something I can do.
I'm just talking about the reality.
Yeah, no, I get it.
There was
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There was a suggestion that Delise made to do a sort of first step while we're analyzing the rest of it and just get something in there now because of all the rains, which was the issue that was raised a month ago.
We've had 3 inches since Friday, as of 10 o'clock today, and more this afternoon. So it's a lot of rain. And Bill Pond is really, really high, and all that water is going right down the creek.
Okay.
So we had asked for a lot of information, a bit of information before, and we did get it, but we didn't get it until the end of last week, which is not the 1 week, in advance. So I don't know if everyone's had the chance to look at that and be comfortable kind of with where we stand. Certainly, any decisions are up to you, but we want to see this stabilized as soon as possible because the rains are here. Whatever form that takes.
What measure can we get the appropriate? I think what I was walking into is the appropriate oversight to make sure it's right. I don't know where
We don't either. We're caught
Yeah.
between how do we take an immediate action.
Right. Rushing things is never a good action. That's when things are done half correct.
So there's, as I understand the dilemma that we're at now, we're looking to see something happen because of the rains and because we're feeling this needs to be stabilized while we still have time to continue to review the full application to make sure that we're satisfied with everything that's been provided. Is that where, trying to sum up where we are?
Yeah. I had a further question of clarification. You had mentioned riprap. Is that material that has to be imported? Are you going to bring that in, or is it you're talking about the rocks that are on site? Because I know that, riprap is, I don't know if it's of a specific size or diameter, but it's large, bulky material that has a lot of mass, and that'll be useful in holding the embankment back. And a lot of the materials that we saw were piles of, much smaller things that had been, as you mentioned, hammered out of the ground, and that, that's what's in those piles. And I think, there is a concern about that stuff mobilizing under a lot of water pressure. And that's where we're really not that comfortable, is like, what are we going forward with here? And, if you're talking about big boulders, I'm not asking you to, import riprap or anything, because getting to and from the site is also an issue. I appreciate that. But just the grading and the placement of those rocks in that pile, I think, is critical to the success of this installation, is what I suspect. And having someone with an engineering background, with a lot of experience on this, who could speak meaningfully to that, I think is a real value.
That's
For
why
the
we brought
project.
2 engineers with stamps on the letter confirming the first stamp drawings, professional engineers. I mean, if you want,
Who would be the planning
You've
board
seen the drawings,
consultant for this? Is it CPL
I have.
with this? Because one way, you know, because we're trying to kind of figure out a stepped approach, but maybe one thing we should do is ask CPL, you know, because I think one question I do have, since Sean, you're the one who asked for the silk
Silk
fencing.
fencing.
Is this what you had in mind, or is?
you were talking about the
Yeah, well, I think
excavated
it was, I mean, just to be clear, I think the entire board asked for self-financing. Just, I think this is a step in the right direction. I think the larger concern is, this is still 30, 40, 60 yards from the actual stream,
Yeah.
right? And between there and there, there's just all this disturbance that has happened. Which right now, any kind of rain is, you know,
Already
continuing to just create a larger problem that was already started by where we are. Trying to choose my words
So-
wisely.
I know for a fact that Tim Lynch, the engineer with Rhinebeck Engineering, sequenced the build by putting in the material, restoring the stream bank, and then putting in the silt fence between the rock and the overburden. Maybe we compromise and have the board go ahead with approving the work immediately, or as soon as possible, where that silt fence that you're asking for now at the river's edge gets put in the appropriate construction phase.
So
we could do that starting next week.
Is that silo staying at this point?
No, we're taking that out.
Okay. That's a huge hole. Yeah, I don't think it's wise for us to approve anything without CPL's input. I think it's like we're not experts on it.
Without what?
Engineers.
I've had 2 engineers.
I didn't
But
ask,
they're
I
not the
didn't ask if you did.
consulting, they're not the planning board's engineers.
I'm sorry.
CPL is the planning board's engineer, so they would review it on behalf of the planning board.
So we gave the town $3,000 6 weeks ago. So why is that not happening? If we're
Because didn't you just
in a rush.
receive these plans?
Sorry?
Didn't you just submit these plans like
In
Thursday or
January.
Friday?
No, what we
These
just
ones.
received, the most recent submittals came in from you when?
The plans haven't changed.
When did the recent submittals come in?
Sorry?
Joel, when did you submit what we looked at as the additions to your application?
I don't know, 10 days ago, but it has nothing to do with the plans that need to be,
Well, it has to do with.
this is a narrative.
Okay.
So it does, because part of what we had asked for, and I think we asked multiple times, was that you have a professional take a look at the design plans by Rhinebeck Engineering and give their input on that. So you hired Collier's Engineering and Design to take a look at that, which they did apparently on April 25th, which was just a couple days ago. So it's not that we haven't had CPL in. CPL isn't going to be brought, we don't typically bring in CPL to do these reviews until we are sure that we are where we think we need to be, so that they don't spend time and your money reviewing these just to see the plans changed again. So what they would also be doing though, just as importantly, if not more importantly, is actually assisting the building department when it goes to construction, because the building department doesn't necessarily have the hydrogeomorphology background that CPL staff do have to ensure that what's going back in is being put back in properly. They'll review the plans to make sure the grading's the same, but the board has asked several times, and I think this has been in here, it was asked several months ago, that you would be willing to have the planning board engineer assist the building department when work is done. And so that was a condition that was put into the draft approval resolution. But I think that's where it came from. You had the plans, yes, the plans haven't changed, but we had asked to have someone confirm that plans, which you've done, but you did that last week.
So now we want a third opinion with a professional engineer essentially.
No, it's as Kim explained,
Independent.
it's an independent consultant that works for the planning board.
I understand.
So,
So my question to you is, why hasn't that happened before now?
Uh,
I thought this
no,
would
so
satisfy
you just
the
explained it.
independent
You just
review.
explained it. So I would just go along with the opinion that, well, yes, let's at this meeting today for this a CPL, and we can't really make any decision until we've heard from them.
And I do really feel, I could be wrong, but I feel that we were clear on the sill plate being down to affect the debris before we're in the mix of spring, which we're now here, and I just want to reinforce that getting done immediately. And I think we've said that a couple times, so I really just want that.
I'll have Botsberg put it in this week, but I guarantee you it'll be ineffectual.
okay. And so, the recommendation has been made that we refer this immediately to CPL and ask for their input. You are in agreement with that? Well,
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
When can that happen expeditiously?
We'll discuss it, and I would assume we can move on that
So,
immediately.
so what would be the process after CPL takes a look and,
I would suggest that one of the things we do, have done in the past, is that CPL will look at all the materials you submitted. They will compile a list of comments or questions. We often encourage your engineers or your consultants to be made available if CPL wants to speak directly with them. That sometimes
And
helps.
being that we were discussing about trying to have a stepped approach, perhaps CPL can kind of focus on that in their review, seeing how they can work with Bosberg to put in
Correct.
those
That is-
stream disturbance.
That was the point I was going to make, and CPL can work with Mr. Bosberg to ensure that CPL is advising them as to what they believe is the correct approach that Bosberg should take. So we can have one professional speaking to another professional. That would be the, now, and if you like, as Kim is suggesting, we can direct CPL to work only on that first and to report
At least
back.
prioritize that. I would say.
Prioritize that and make that happen quickly, and then if they have other questions, following up on future actions, we can.
that'd be fantastic.
Correct. Anybody else? Okay. Do you think you have that, Jim, in terms of where we are? Kim, John, are we all on the same page here? Okay. Anyone from the public here? Okay.
Say we keep the public hearing open until it's.
Yeah, I would keep the public hearing open, and I would ask for a motion to continue the public hearing
June 2nd.
until
June 2nd.
till June 2nd, but I would like to encourage Joel, if you work directly with Jim as the person working also with CPL, just to ensure that we can keep this moving along. Just because we're continuing the public hearing doesn't mean we can't make, some accommodations along the way.
One thing I would suggest too is that we keep the building department informed, just so that they're aware of whatever changes are happening, are approved changes that are happening, again, for the purpose of maintaining and not worsening any sort of damage.
So we will follow up with either Jim or I, or all of us, will follow up with Brian and let him know the status of this evening's meeting and the decisions that have been made, and keep him in the loop, so that there's no confusion or miscommunication. Okay, did I have a motion in a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for your time.
You're welcome, Joel. Have a good evening. The last public hearing for this evening is that of the Wildflowers Pool, 7085 and 7091 Route 9 site plan with special use permit for daycare and nursery school. Please begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Charlie Gottlieb. I'm a land use counsel at the law firm of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna in Albany, New York. Here on behalf of Wildflower Montessori Incorporated. Here this evening with our project engineer, Marty Wilms, as well as our applicants, Anusha Byrne and Paul Byrne. We have a proposed daycare and nursery school that I'm sure at this point everyone is quite familiar with. It's at 7085 and 7091 Route 9. It's a renovation of existing structures and improvements of the circular horseshoe driveway and parking area that you see on the screen. It is in the town's RC5 zoning district, which the daycare nursery schools are permitted use with site plan approval and special use permit. Again, this project has been around for a while with extensive amounts of public hearings. I do believe we are narrowing down the issues that we can discuss this evening. Those remaining issues are not, as we'll discuss, are not going to result in major changes to the layout of the project site or the design of the project site. So we will be asking that this board close the public hearing as we conclude this evening. Some of the remaining issues, and Marty will provide a technical update. One is we have gone through that DEC wetland delineation process. As land use and environmental attorney, it's actually the first project I've had that's gone through that process. So the 90 days did run. A certified letter was submitted to the DEC, making them aware that their 90 days has run. 10 days have passed. So now they are in that 5-year waiver of any wetlands on the site. We've previously provided documentation that the Dutchess County DOH is ready to issue their permits and approvals pending this board's approval. More importantly, and this is I think where the discussion will be this evening, is permitting with the DOT. Marty, I think as early as today, was going back and forth with the DOT, cleaning up some last minute items, some minor technical items, and some of the project kind of confusion with the existing shared driveway that there is there with the neighbor to, I believe it is the south. Sometimes I get mixed up on these plans. In short, and to just ensure the planning board, there is no construction, work, or improvements whatsoever happening on the neighbor's property. All improvements, all ground disturbance, all paving, etc., is only happening on the wildflower parcel. I know that Marty and Jim have been discussing some ways to better depict that on the site plan, which I think is going to be great to clean up the record and any confusion. So with that said, I'll hand it over to Marty to, yes.
Before you do that, because the planning board, other planning board members were not part of the conversation that we had last week. So I'm going to ask Jim to sort of precede Marty and explain the situation that Jim brought to our attention and what we're working to resolve, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, Jim?
So let me just open.
Because I agree that work has been done to progress the answers to this, but I want the full board to understand what preceded this new iteration.
Absolutely.
So, you know, where this discussion came from, that I identified an issue of work potentially being done or proposed to be done on the neighbor's property, that I believe DOT also identified, but I'm not going to speak for them, is that there was a hard line right here, and there was another one right here. And as you can see, the existing gravel drive was shown as this kind of dashed line. So my interpretation of seeing this on the plans is that this was showing that they were proposing to change the neighbor's driveway on the neighbor's property. This is the property line here, and this is the easement area that's shown. It's half on the neighbor's property and then half on the wildflower property. So when I looked at this is a pin. I saw you guys, there's proposed work on the neighbor's property. You can't do that without the neighbor's approval and permission, and based on everything that we've heard from the neighbor, I don't think that has been provided. So we did have a conversation about this, and Marty did put together, and I did take a look at this, so I'm going to have to get back to you. a new set of plans that shows the existing gravel drive. As you can see, those dark lines have been removed from the plans. And so what I see happening here is that there is no proposed change to the driveway here. It's coming out the way that it was, and over here, because this does go across the property line, but there is a proposal to essentially keep the neighbor's driveway within that easement on the Wildflower property, but still come out to the road. So this is your driveway now. So she'll still have full access with no real changes to the neighbor's driveway, but certainly no changes on the neighbor's property, which you cannot do without the neighbor's approval. So I think these plans, and there's no stating that these, the driveway will stay as is on the neighbor's property. I think these plans that were just put together last week do show what we need in terms of not showing any work on the neighbor's property, which has been something I've been discussing since February, but apparently not clear enough on exactly what it is I was seeing. So we have that resolved. So I think that in my opinion, I think that's taken care of, and that issue is done. From a planning perspective, I do think we're pretty much down to talking about DOT approval, and then just making sure that all the plans are consistent, because the KDA plans have not been updated to match what Marty's done, so that would obviously have to be done at some point. But that's where I think I fall right now from the planning side and kind of the background and where we are.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Marty.
Thanks, folks. Looking back at those plans where I had the solid driveway line, my intention was to show what would be a DOT compliant footprint for the neighbor's driveway, showing that we're not taking away her access of that easement, her entitled access. But I definitely, after speaking with Jim and Melanie, I definitely understand that looks like we're doing work on the neighbor's property. So we removed that, and we're able to, this northern line right here essentially just shows the potential northern extents of her driveway. It's an 18-foot wide driveway, so technically probably won't need that much, but that's as far as she can go and still be within her easement there. So the DOT also, they did have confusion about that, so obviously it wasn't clear because two different parties came to the same conclusion about that. They were wondering about the easement. They asked us for a copy of that easement, so we're sending them a copy of the deed that has that easement described in there. And they were also wondering in particular about work being done on the neighbor's property. So we've responded to them that no work's going to be happening on the neighbor's property. Other than that, I'll just take you through the latest review items that they asked us to correct on the drawing. So that was taken care of. That was item number one. They also wanted us to show this distance here between the extent of our driveway and the extent of where her driveway potentially could be. It's about 5 feet. And it's shown on the plan there, but it wasn't shown on sheet 2 of the plans, so we added that to sheet 2 of the plans. So they've had that to look at, but they just needed it on all the details. Makes sense. I screwed up a couple of the payment item numbers for paving several times. I think I got it now for sure. I spoke with the DOT this morning. I got confirmation that we have the correct type of paving. But they like to, well, it doesn't matter, but essentially, I'm not used to, for driveways around here, when you have a driveway paved, they usually don't use density gauges and things like this. You use a number of passes with a roller, and they're asking us to do density gauges, so I had a problem with that. They're also asking us to exceed DOT requirements by 50% for our asphalt thickness. We're putting in 12 inches of asphalt at the base of the driveway, and I argued with that. We lost that argument in the end. We just need to move past it, but they really brought us to the ringer. Site distance table, that's another thing they asked us to do. That's actually sheet 2. This site distance table right down here, we just needed to review or revise that. And so we did. I'll just say we did. We actually revised the 2 previous quantities we already had on there 2 submissions ago. But it's revised, it's done. They wanted confirmation that that the signage that we're proposing, and I apologize, can we go to sheet 3? this signage was indeed breakaway signage. Gretchen, thank you very much for getting the electronic copy up so quick. That was breakaway signage, that if a car did go off the side of the road and struck the sign, that it would flatten out and not injure anybody who's driving the car. So we got that on there. Do not enter sign, she wanted that with the details, got that on there. And then there's a street view. When you're going by the property, there's an old two-post sign in the front yard, along with sort of like an antique lamp post. We weren't sure what it was at first, but then we found another lamp post on the property. It's a lamp post. So she asked that they be removed from the right-of-way there, that the only signage within that right-of-way be our one-way sign, or our do not enter sign. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so these guys, this is an old lamp post. There's the existing one that's out of the right-of-way that can stay, or it actually might shift because of our driveway widening. And yeah, so these two guys would be removed. She also wanted confirmation that the utility pole was outside of the right-of-way, and it is. And so that's what the DOT, that was basically it. We spoke with them this morning, and we do definitely feel like we're on the same page on a lot of different things now.
So you just submitted your revised materials to them, they still have yet to look at it?
There's one issue that we haven't answered yet. They asked us, because actually, I'm sorry, Jim, can we go back to sheet 2? And we go down here. So this table shows the required site distance for traffic moving north and southbound on Route 9 and what's available. These numbers down here are what's available. So this is what's available to the north. So we have, when you're turning into the property at the north entrance, we have 535 feet to the north. When you're pulling out of the property on the south entrance, we have just 505 feet to the north, which doesn't quite make sense. It's just the shape of the curve. That's what we get. And 1235 and 1215, that's what we have to the south. So the minimum required intersection site distance is 610 feet for a car turning left or right onto Route 9 from the property. We only have 505 feet, so they said, okay, we're going to need an advanced warning sign to be placed for southbound traffic. So they see, oh, okay, you don't quite have the site distance. We went through the process of citing that advanced warning sign this morning. And going by DOT standards, we're supposed to place that advanced warning sign at 495 feet, which is less than our site distance, which is less than the required 610 feet. And we don't understand it. So it seems like they want us to put a warning sign 115 feet after what they say their intersection site distance is. So that's the only thing that we still have to work out.
And they haven't provided you with an explanation?
I emailed her the question, but yeah. Okay. But and then as soon as we get that, we'll submit and they'll review.
Okay.
So I think I pretty much hit on my comments. I think we need to get the DOT approval, and the KDA plans will need to be updated consistent with wherever we land, because right now they're not. So, but this is the existing sheet, but this is a very old one actually. So yeah, so we just need to make sure those are consistent.
And board members? Is there anyone here to comment on this, other than, I know where you are. Are you here first? No, okay. John and Kim, comments?
First of all, thank you for working with DOT, and I think that was a helpful meeting that we had, and I'm glad moving forward. So, DOT doesn't have a problem with the potential entrance the close distance between the potential entrance for the neighbor?
I thought that was the issue. When we were gonna talk on Friday, I was like, I called them because I was thinking, this is their issue. Because they had brought that up earlier, and we had made a code-based argument of why that's not the case. And so I spoke with Jason Brenner at the DOT. I said, Jason, is this the issue we're gonna be discussing? He said, no, that's fine. So as far as I understand, that's not the issue. They just kind of wanted us to show that distance on all of the details.
Well, but since they were confused as we were, I don't know how they could say it was fine, because they still had confusion themselves.
So what they said was, and now, I'll just tell you, basically their standard shows, it talks about 2 neighboring driveways. It says 2 residential driveways, if allowed, should be 30 feet apart. But that statement, 2 residential driveways, if allowed, like, you wouldn't be asking if a single residential driveway would be allowed to a single residential lot. In the context of that sheet, and I could definitely send the board the plan and also the notes that detail that plan, it's obviously talking about 2 residential driveways being allowed on a single residential lot. The very next note is 2 driveways being allowed on the same commercial lot. They give the separation for that. It's really obvious. So
We still have yet to hear back from them.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Kim, anything else?
No, I know that's been a question that I had, but do you think that regarding the site distance, all they're requiring is more of a signage issue than?
Yep, advanced mooring sign.
So how far along do you think DOT would take to finish their review? I know it's a question.
I think we're really down to just a few items here. So I'm hoping, and we have a good dialogue going now with the engineers during the review, so I think that we can probably get answers to our question and provide them with a clear sense, clear set of compliant plans, hopefully by the end of the week.
One comment, Marty, that I'll look at this. You still have a turning template in here for the truck, but you widen the driveway to fit a fire vehicle, which is wider. It would be a bigger turning template. So I think this is fine if this is to say, typical truck to enter.
Sure.
But I don't want there to be any confusion when this gets to the building department to think that this is the turning radius you're providing, because you do need to provide the wider radius for the fire department. So maybe a note here underneath, because I know this is a typical, cut. Just a note to say this is a typical vehicle accessing it, but the turning radius is set for that per fire department request or something would be good. Just add that additional, text underneath there.
I'll definitely add.
Somewhere in the future, we're gonna come back and be like, why do we have this turning template on here with a different turning radius?
I'll definitely add a clarifying note.
Yeah.
Well, I was surprised also though, because I checked the 2. I checked the fire truck, the 45-foot fire truck, I believe it was, versus the single unit 30-foot truck. And you would think the 45-foot fire truck for sure would have a turning radius that would be required to be larger than the single unit 30-foot box truck. But the single unit 30-foot box truck actually captures the radius of the fire truck, believe it or not.
The overhang on the turn? Because the chief said he didn't think he could get through, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, I think just a quick note, just to clarify that
Sure.
That's your standard vehicle, but you are building it to the fire department's request would be good, just so we don't have any questions in the future which ones.
Okay. Yep, no problem. Thank you, Tom.
Jim, I just wanted to point out, because I know it was discussed at the last meeting, it looks like on this new revise that they did put snow removal.
Yeah.
Just because it was raised at the last meeting.
Yeah.
We brought that up.
So we've got snow removal, and then we do have snow removal area. Thanks.
I would propose that with the lack of public comment, that I'd be comfortable closing the public hearing and keeping this as old business, since it seems like we're just waiting on DOT at this point.
John, Kim, what are your thoughts at this point?
If you do want to consider closing the public hearing, my only concern is that once you close the public hearing, you have 62 days in which to issue the decision. I know that Marty has just said that he hopes to get the DOT soon, but I know sometimes DOT takes a little longer. So I would just ask if you are considering that, can we get an extension for at least another month beyond?
Yeah, one thing I'll say is, unlike subdivisions, where if you run past the 62 days, it's a default approval for the applicant, for site plan and special use permit review, that 62 days is somewhat meaningless. It's not a default approval of the project. So if we get close to that 62 days, I don't see that being a problem whatsoever. But at this point, we plan on getting this resolved well within 62 days. But certainly if we get close, we would be amenable to that.
So if we get close, you're indicating your willingness to give that extension. Is that correct?
Yeah, not at the moment, but as we get closer to 62 days.
Well, you can't have both.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Well, I guess that's lawyer talk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do it in.
Right now, we're not in a position to give the 62 days, but that's 2 months.
I'm not in a position to close the public hearing.
Well, if we go back to a few applications before, there was a close of the public hearing without an identification of the underground utilities.
Yep, that was
Which
true.
is something that could drastically change a project. And so, we would like to be treated in that same manner, given that any changes here wouldn't be a substantial change to the project design.
But the applicant there was willing to do it.
Oh, I don't recall that there was an extension granted.
No, but we asked if he was willing to provide that information, he said he was, so I think that influenced us.
We're not asking you to agree, we're not saying that you have to agree at 92 days or something like that, but we're saying if you get up, where we're asking,
Yes,
like,
granted.
okay, there we go.
So, no, what are we
There's
saying?
some decisions I can make, and there's some decisions I can't make.
Well, and our goal is in 2 weeks from now that this is a ridiculous conversation we've had to begin with. So,
Absolutely.
that's the whole, I don't know the
So a month has been granted from the 62 days if the public hearing is closed. Is that what you're confirming?
Correct.
So it would go out to sometime in August, potentially. We're going to try to close this as soon as possible, but if the public hearing were to be closed, it would go, the
62
approval
days
would
would
have
go.
until August. I don't have the exact calendar date, but correct.
Yes, if we go to August, I'm going to be getting phone calls every day, so.
Well, we're
gonna get this
hoping
wrapped
to
up
get
soon.
DOT soon, but I just want to confirm.
All right, so,
Motion to close the public.
motion to close the public hearing is in order with the understanding that you have agreed that you would extend another 30 days beyond the 62.
Yes.
correct?
And I just wanted to confirm again for the board that if substantial changes are required from DOT, you do have the advantage of opening up the public comment period again to address those changes.
All right, Sean, I think you believe you were ready to make that motion? Or you
So
can't?
moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Is there anything else?
How far do we want to go out to the next, this with on old business week? I guess this is the next question for us.
We don't have to schedule a business for an agenda, right? We just put it back on when we're ready.
Yeah, because it's not like a public hearing in terms of like where you.
Yeah,
need
so
to
we're just
go.
waiting for more information from you guys at this point.
So we can give you a heads up that we've worked things out with DOT and then we can get on the.
Well, I'd rather set the date tonight, and I mean, I don't have a problem.
Perhaps set it for the 2 weeks, and
I
then if we
don't-
need to extend it, we'll just
Yeah.
have it off the agenda.
And I think just to confirm the deliverables, it's the DOT clean letter essentially, and then the updated architectural site plan set.
So it's 2 weeks normally for submission. You want to go out 2 weeks, 'cause then that's your,
You're saying you don't have the
the
information?
submission would be May 19th for the June 2nd meeting, is what I'm saying.
Well, the DOT letter is not really a submission, right? I mean, that's just confirmation
Right.
that DOT is okay with it.
It would
But
be
I would say,
technical.
yeah, I mean, I guess,
I'm just
whatever, yeah, no, that's.
If we give
Well,
any leeway
it's gonna
away,
be-
then the
Jim's-
next
Jim's
applicant
gonna be
is
the
gonna
person
ask
who's gonna
for
have
the
to-
same.
I mean, all that I'm going to be doing is comparing to make sure when we're at the final point, the KDA's plan matches the plan we see on screen. So right now, I think we can say the board has close the public hearing based on what we're seeing on this plan. The KDA plan needs to be brought up to the same design as what's shown here. And then when they're
That's by May
consistent,
19th?
when they're consistent, then we have that sign off from DOT.
Second.
How long will it take?
Go ahead,
I
Melanie.
was going to ask how long, Marty, applicant team, to update all of the KDA information and have it.
Those would be done well before the 19th. So those would be, we
What
would
I'm
make that
looking-
19th.
Well, I want Jim to have a chance to look at it, so.
I
can have them do it this week.
Okay.
I don't think, I just need a couple days.
Well, I would say if we can, if we go out 2 weeks, I'd like to have all of the updated information in 1 week in advance of that 2 weeks. That gives Jim some time to take a look at it. I know he's happy to move it quickly, but I don't want to burden him with everything, so.
That would be next month.
So like by the
Maybe a week, maybe a week.
If next Monday you have, if by next Monday you have all of the updated information and understanding that DOT may not be in the same time schedule, then what we'll do is we'll schedule it to the old business 2 weeks from tonight.
Understood, that works.
Okay? Everybody is satisfied with that? So I don't know that we need a motion, but do I have consensus that we'll put it on the agenda 2 weeks out?
Aye.
Agreed.
Aye, okay.
Agreed.
All right, good, thank you.
Thank you.
And if you, Marty and Charlie, if you could just, keep the board up to date, as soon as you find information, just let us know so that we, the board can kind of keep up to date as well.
Perfect. Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. One order of old business, since we're talking old business. Gretchen, we still haven't heard anything from Portia Rock and Craig Shipper?
No.
Can we talk about, are they past the 3 months?
They had somebody out there.
Okay.
She said they were coming out. That was the last meeting. They were supposed to come out
Told me
that week
someone's
or
actually going out to the
whatever.
site on this one. So this is why we never know, right? They're putting up a small, accessory structure outside of the wetland in the floodplain, and it's outside the 100-foot buffer, but DEC still ended up going to this property to take a look at it. So this is why I'm saying we had that conversation at the last meeting about what do we do. We just have to err on the side of caution and make sure that we're
So
ensuring
when
that we're
did they
meeting
submit the
these.
JD?
I don't have.
I don't know the date
date
they
on
submitted it. It's been at least 2 months now, I
I
think.
think
If DEC has to come out, does that bump out that 90-day period? I can't remember if I'm
They
wrong.
have 90 days to make a decision or request more time,
Oh,
is how I read it. So I don't know where they stand right now.
And they can just, they pick when they want to come out and when they don't. There's no point of reference, they
Well,
make a decision.
Their initial work is
The 90
done.
days, I guess, to make the decision.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the,
But just
once
like
they
how
make a
file,
decision.
which
I just
file
want
does
to,
this one?
make sure, because my recollection is that these applicants were represented by an architect. And I just would wish that we might circle back to her, because this 30 days, then the 10 days, if she were not to write the letter after the 90 days, I don't know what would happen. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a requirement that she send a follow-up. She's got to be watching the clock, and I just want to make sure, if you've got a consultant advising you that's aware of all these DEC, but I can't guarantee that the architect is up on engineering DEC standards. So, Jim, you want to, Jim and Gretchen talk about, give her a call and find out. I mean, it's such a straightforward application, it's a shame that others have heard and she hasn't.
It is for us, but DEC has taken an interest in this one, so there's something out there, because they originally, my belief is by remote sensing, they look at aerials and imagery and other mapping that they have, and then make a determination if they want to take it further. So something caught their eye on this one.
Well, there's a lot of-
Especially now with all that, the flood of applications that they have.
Yeah.
If they're going out,
Because I thought a lot of
definitely.
the new plans were purposely outside of the wetlands. I mean, that was one of the reasons they didn't use the old barn.
Well, they are, but DEC's new
The-
jurisdiction for review is 800 feet of a vernal pool and,
So there's-
200 or 300 feet from a wetland, and so we don't even know where vernal pools are, right? Because we don't have any mapping on it. That's why, essentially, if you're within 800 feet of a wetland or anything that looks wet to me, I'm suggesting everyone get that GD determination, because we just don't have the maps.
This was the one that just got the letter explaining what it was.
Right,
and
she did send us
submitted it.
something from
So I
DEC.
don't know when they actually submitted them, because we got that back on April 8th. She sent that, saying, these are the things we need, so I don't know if she actually submitted the JD.
Right, that was
Until
just an-
after that, we
just an
told
FYI.
her that she needed to actually submit it. So
Let's see
that
if we
might
can
be a
get some
holdup.
clarification. Okay, so we'll keep it under old business pending new information. That takes us to two ZBA referrals. Jim?
Yes, indeed. So our first ZBA referral is a project we looked at last time, which is the Stosberg Holdings, the proposal for the flooring store. And I will bring up the plans, see where we want to go. So I'm sure everyone remembers this proposal. It's right across from the pizza place. And they need a couple of variances to build here. As you know, the building area is pretty small. I think it's this area right here. I'm looking at it properly. This is your building on this property under the current zoning. So they're proposing to construct the flooring showroom and attached storage building along 9G in the CRB zoning district. It is a relatively small parcel with a small building footprint, or with a small building area that you can build. It leaves only a small portion of the property to build without requiring an area variance. They presented to the board at the April 21st meeting. They are requesting a front yard setback variance of 83 feet, a side yard setback variance of 2 feet, a rear yard setback variance of 7 feet for the proposed building, and a 51-foot front yard setback variance for the parking. We did at the planning board meeting request that they look at the potential to move the building back from the road a little bit, certainly add some more landscaping, as we believe the massing of the building and the proximity to the road will be significant, a stark difference from what is generally along the corridor now. Related to site design, the variance requests, we wanted to note the applicant has revised their wetland delineation, and it does now actually extend onto the subject property. So before they were saying it was to the edge of the property, but when they went out into the delineation, it actually comes in somewhere around here now. I think I have that sheet. Not on this plan set. I couldn't determine by looking at the map that they sent, it didn't have their proposal on it, whether or not that new wetland delineation actually comes over the back end of the parking here or not. It's very close, and I think it probably does. So that may be something we'll have to talk about. So anyway, I was recommending the planning board request that the ZBA keep the public hearing open until such time as the planning boards have the ability to talk more with the applicant about what they could do to potentially lessen the massing concerns along the frontage, assess the impact of the wetland buffer if there is any, and then discuss the trade-offs that might be necessary given the lot size and concerns about disturbance within a wetlands buffer and the building location.
So Jim, just as an update, typically the ZBA would be meeting on May 21st of this year. They don't have a quorum, so they're actually, it's already being pushed out to June something in June. So anyway, just to say, if the board does need more time, they certainly have the next.
So maybe we don't make we don't do a response now, and we just hold it since there's no foul in doing that.
June
We
18th would be the next time that this.
bring it back up in our next.
Yeah, we also, as I recall, and Mr. Angel seemed willing to look at additional landscaping between the portion of the building fronting on the road, and Edna also raised the question that I thought they were going to look into about the necessity of that full courtyard pull-around parking. Did they really need it? My recollection was that it had to do with truck traffic and how things moved around, but I think that was also brought up as does it have to be that way? It looks like an awful lot of impervious surface that may not be necessary. So there were a couple of other things that were raised, I think, that we would be waiting. They're scheduled to come back to us before what would be the ZBA meeting. So I would suggest we don't act on a referral tonight. We wait until we see what they come in with.
So we'd be discussing it then the earliest, the first June meeting, because they are on in 2 weeks. So we can discuss it at the first June meeting after we've had time to talk with them again, just see where things stand. And then if we want to ask the ZBA to hold it open further, because we still have discussions and thoughts, we can do that. If we have a response, we can do that. We can respond back to that time.
Yeah, because I think the wetland delineation may alter their plans a little bit. Okay, then that takes us to timely signs, case 1076, Constance Baffert. 175, excuse me.
So timely signs, putting in a sign on behalf of equipment rental and sales on, what is that, 9G, I believe?
Yes.
What that is. They want to put in a sign, it's a commercial use, obviously, it's going to exceed what is permitted by code. As you know, the code is pretty strict for commercial uses on larger roads, collector roads. So they want to do something that's bigger than 8 square feet. Brian took a look at it. Yes, there are LED lights, we'll get to that part. And they want to put up a double-sided freestanding sign that totals 24 square feet, when the maximum permitted is 8. This is in a residential zoning district. Again, we have discussed the sign.
Assuming it's double sided, right?
Yeah, it's 12 square feet on both sides.
12 on each
So
side,
20,
yeah.
24 total.
Yeah. Which,
So we have talked about the fact that signage for non-residential uses on major roads is an issue that should be discussed for potential zoning amendments. We haven't had that happen yet. But this is in a residential zoning district, which does obviously raise some red flags when we're talking about consistency with neighborhood character and ensuring that the non-residential use and those associated elements remain compatible with the area and the zoning district. So I'm kind of deferring to you in terms of what type of response you want to provide. They are proposing LED lights on the top of the sign, although I think I was told that that may be changing.
Yeah, actually, Jim, I
because-
was just going to say, so I spoke with Brian Tam about this because he had noted that in a residential district, lighted signs are not permitted. So we addressed that with the applicant at the last BBA meeting. They are looking into removing that. We have not received any updated plans. There was also talk about maybe even having the paint be more reflective to not have to require light. They said they're going to be closed around like 4 or 5 p.m. anyway. So the timely signs couldn't make that judgment at the ZBA meeting, but they were going to speak to the owner about that. But we did raise that, and I explained to the applicant and to the board, if they do require lighting, they would need a use variance. So we discussed that option with them as well.
So are we in the same position we were with the last one, which is you won't take it up?
Yeah, we're not meeting in May, so if
So
you
we could wait for
like
the
to-
additional information, updated information from
Sure.
the sign?
Yeah.
do we know if this is going to see in place the current signs?
No, it's going a little bit closer to the road. I think the current sign,
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
way
it's going
back,
right there.
yeah.
The current sign is a little bit further back and kind of more flat facing the road. They said they weren't going to really, I believe they said they weren't going to remove the platform that the other sign is on. I can't remember.
There's a
the
lot
name.
of grass, it's just, yeah, it's just grass. I mean, what's on it right now, it's just.
I have a question. I go by this multiple times every day. Pre-COVID, COVID, they were some light equipment, but mainly what they rented was inside the building. And they had the little backhoe or bobcat. It's heavy equipment now, and it's just out there. It's both outside the fencing, they park it, and inside the fencing. It's like it went from like a hardware to a heavy equipment yard.
That's interesting.
And so, but there's no landscaping, it's all this equipment. See,
I didn't
and you get the,
Yeah, that crane thing, that lift.
the back is all filled with stuff, and this front area is all filled with stuff. It is, over the last couple of years, totally changed. And
Because
it's
it was like a
just
tent,
open.
it was originally tents and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's party rock.
Yeah, it was part of
Yeah.
it, exactly.
And then they went to, stuff that you would rent floor,
Sanders.
and stuff like that, with like a little bobcat or this. This is, the equipment they're showing here is actually quite small compared to a lot of this. So my question is, are they opening something up with the sign that you can say something about landscaping on this? No?
No, I don't, I hear your point, and I think it's more of a, I mean, I wouldn't also consider this a residential area in our town. It's really not.
I mean, I think it's a good comment, Tom, but I think the thing to do might be to pass along to Brian.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe, do we have
But it is residential because I
It's
live.
in the RC5.
It is houses all along
Whether you
there.
agree or not, it
All
is.
along from 308 to 9
Yes, yes, this
is
section
residential.
is,
There's two businesses.
this section is this and Ruby's, which is, you know.
Yeah, it has Rugies, it has the.
Well, let's not go there.
But the reason I mention is it's a residential zoning district, so
Yeah.
when we start making decisions that might start changing
The
things out
character.
there, it starts setting,
Well, and
potentially setting a precedent.
And to be fair, Rugies there are issues with Rugies property with all of the cars that are on property that they shouldn't be on.
Correct.
Which was going back to why we approved all the relocation of servicing to where it is. So
Right.
Rugies is not a good example.
Because right before this is Warren Kitchen Cutlery, which is it's very chic looking. It's almost like it's not.
Really low key, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rental place has been there as long as I can remember, but it's gone through different iterations, and you're right, it has
Yeah.
changed. But there's probably not a special use permit for that
I
site?
would- I think that-
You'd have to ask Brian, because it could be a non-conforming use, I don't know.
Yeah,
Of the
Because
degree to which the business on the property can change.
yeah,
Somebody has to
Yeah.
really sit down and look at it.
yeah, Tom's right, they've got
And-
booms there, the booms are parked with the baskets way up, which
Well,
is
that's
almost
it.
like a
It's like
billboard.
And they have
Yeah,
the trucks.
that's a security.
Exactly.
It's a security thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
it is?
Yeah, well, it only has to be up
Yeah,
about,
even if you go to the fairgrounds and you see
All the
the
bucket
street
trucks are
truck
up.
parked in there, they
Yeah.
always put the bucket up.
When it triggers in my memory, and I know it's not the same, but that's why I agree with you, it should go to Brian. I remember for a while, years ago, when we were reviewing Tractor Supply,
Yeah.
that wanted to come in town, there were some requirements that everything that they had to be fenced in, and nothing could be displayed outside the fenced-in area. So,
That this is one of the rules, so.
and
it's
I
gonna
don't
be-
know whether that
Yeah.
rolls over and applies here or not.
That was a real issue in that case because this outside display was something that's very important to their formula.
Yeah.
Right, and they indeed did not come here because of that, they gave it up and it became the medical center. They were looking at the former grocery store to go there, and the deal breaker was that they wanted everything displayed outside, and we were saying it has to be in a fenced-in area, and it's not works.
Yeah, I think we should, I agree, we should put this over to Brian and just, if anything,
Okay.
get some clarity.
Yes,
We're wrapping up
absolutely.
here.
I agree we should get this over to Brian and just see if it's really conforming use. And Melody was just discussing how some of the law is that things have to be behind a closed fence, which would change the view of this. As far as the sign, I think it's about the same size as the sign they had, it's just the one sign they have right now is one-sided, if you look at it. I don't think there's a huge difference. It's just off the road and one side, it's a very similar,
Oh, yeah,
and-
yeah, I'm
yeah.
agreeing.
But
with
we
you.
have time to,
So we'll do the
to,
same thing, we'll refer this to Brian, ask for him to look this over, make any comments, but I think you're correct, the sign review runs separately.
Right.
And-
Yeah, two separate.
and there's some signage in the glass from what I'm seeing in some of this too, like, if I remember, so I don't still know how that fits into. I think there's some signage in the glass, like,
It all counts.
every chainsaw.
yeah, steel, I think they have a steel sign there and a couple other things in the windows.
Every
So it might
square
be
inch of
something
signage, every square inch of signage counts
Counts,
for
yeah.
this, so it would all come into play in terms of the sign.
Right, so I
So
just
if
don't
you
know if
guys
that's
are
even.
talking to them, you might be asking them to calculate what
Yeah,
that
because
is.
I thought, I don't know if that was just, if the 8 square foot was all signage or if that was just a freestanding. I have to check the zoning
A lot of
regulations.
reviews are just talking about this sign, but you're right, if there's other signage, then there may be something else.
And I noticed definitely signage in that window, and there might be just like old light boxes or stuff they haven't moved, but, they definitely, I know they definitely want people to know they're there, because a lot of people actually don't even know they're there and what they're doing. I've rented from them quite a bit when I've needed to do things, so.
What they're doing, they have semis going in and out of there every day.
They're in Tom's back there, that's all.
They're my bad.
Tom knows all about it.
These things usually get delivered on a pretty big truck.
Yeah, they have semis with flat beds coming in and out.
Okay. Well, if we can end that,
Push them both off to June 2nd, and
Yep.
we discuss where we stand at that point.
okay, you had two last minor things.
Yes.
That of scheduling a site visit and an update on workforce housing.
So, workforce housing, I can just let you know, if you don't know already, the town board started discussing a zoning change to workforce housing at the last town board meeting. A copy of what they're proposing is available online, it's attached to the agenda. If you open the agenda on the homepage of the town's website, and you scroll down a couple pages, you'll find, I think there are actually two local laws they're proposing. One is to actually lay the district down on the property, and then the other is the actual regulation changes that they're proposing to make for the district. My understanding is that that will be coming back to us at some point in the near future. I'm not going to define near future because I don't know. But when it does, we will be reviewing it against those regulations. So if you get some free time and want to do something, you might want to just take a look and see where we stand in terms of what's going to potentially change. It isn't yet.
I'm going to suggest that our reviewer Gretchen, just rather than ask them to find it online,
Send it out.
send it out, what Warren presented at the meeting. I don't remember the date. The town board set a public hearing, which I did not capture in my mind when they did it, but at the meeting, when Warren presented this proposal, they did set a public hearing. So I think they're trying to fast track it.
Okay. I think Craig had also mentioned, because I think Craig had looked at the resolution, and there's supposed to be like an attachment, a table attachment.
That's what Jim had just said, it's actually in the agenda.
Oh, it's in the agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
I'll send out.
I had missed that.
I'll send out a copy. I'll go through and pull it out. I'll send everyone a copy tomorrow.
And that's what I was looking for, is
Yeah.
the, you know, the standards that there is. And is it the 14th that they're having their meeting to discuss the
public
hearing?
I don't recall, but
Okay.
I do believe that they were trying to schedule it fairly quickly to move it along. And I can say that they are proceeding with waiving a number of things that would normally be before the planning board in order to move workforce housing along. So you should read it carefully, because we will certainly not be reviewing it according to what we normally are accustomed to. Certain things will not be within our purview, and we should just all know and understand that going into it. None of us want to, and if there's, I do recall some of the language, if there is a disagreement between the applicant and the planning board, that disagreement is settled by the town board. And they will make a determination as to how it should go. So, there we are.
If there are things that that they seem intent on waiving that we find is objectionable, or are we at liberty to show up at the public hearing and as...
I think you were always at liberty to show up at a public hearing.
And I think Gretchen just said it was May 12th was the public hearing.
May 12th, yeah.
May
it is
12th.
today.
So a week from today.
At 6:05.
So they scheduled it for their next town board meeting. Okay.
May 12th, 6:05.
Yeah, I think you identify yourself as a member of the public, you're free to speak. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. It is.
With some hesitation.
Just make it clear.
I'm not sounding that way, is that I think that in an ideal world, it would be better if there was a consensus on the board about certain things. It would be better to be presenting those comments as a consensus of the board rather than, I'm not diminishing the voice of one citizen, but I think that it would carry a little bit more force if...
And the planning board did actually submit a comment letter
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
board.
We submitted
Yeah.
a comment letter, but the comment letter certainly, I believe that what was presented, speaking from memory here, at their town board meeting last month, wasn't in the same format as the draft that we'd seen earlier. It was presented differently. I don't see that we have an opportunity as a full board to respond to what Warren is going to be presenting as part of the public hearing. So I get both points here.
Well, I don't want my comment to be misinterpreted to say you can't go.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Right. Well, and I'll make it clear, if I do approach the bench, that I'm speaking as a resident of the town and village and not as a...
Who happens to be on the planning board.
Yeah,
The other thing I
not
would say
speaking for the
is
planning board.
that what has been outlined, it does include this does anticipate a situation where the planning board might, in its review, take exception to something that the town board has put forward. So I don't think we're precluded from saying we don't like this or we don't like that. However, what's in there, just to be clear, is that if there is a difference of opinion that is substantial between, it's my understanding, between the planning board and the concept approval that the town board is, that it will be at the discretion of the town board to resolve the difference of opinion.
Yes. The only other thing I want to add as well is that another thing to consider before making remarks as a private citizen before the town board is that depending on what the content of your remarks are, there may come a time later where you may be asked to recuse yourself from the planning board action on the matter on the grounds that, I don't know, you're biased or you prejudge the application. And so as an individual, you need to make a decision about, where's your participation going to be more effective. I'm not saying you'd be asked to recuse for sure. I'm just reminding you that might be, if you're perceived to be an opponent, sometimes there's an incentive on behalf of others to remove someone, on the grounds that they're biased. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. The law requires planning board members to keep an open mind and to be able to exercise the full scope of judgment in making their decision.
Absolutely. It's just, it seems like there have been issues brought up by the planning board, both in writing and verbally, that seem to have not taken hold and gotten incorporated. And these are all things that grow out of those broader policies of the comprehensive plan and everything that was designed into the workforce housing proposal. So, being heard on those levels, I think, doesn't make me biased. It makes me vigilant.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I wouldn't want it to be taken the wrong way, but I will qualify my remarks.
Yes, and I think if you're presenting versions of remarks that or versions of positions that the planning board's already taken, you're really just conveying, you may be communicating in a different way the same things that the board's already said to the town board, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that in any regard, really, because those are already comments that have been made.
Just to be clear, John, when this is adopted by the town board, it goes to the state for approval, and the planning board cannot make a final determination in a resolution until the state has accepted the law, correct? So it's not actually physically law until the state DOS has approved it.
They don't really approve it, though.
I know it's a rubber
They
stamp,
just
but
file it. They
technically,
just file it.
right, but technically, can we not move until that is done? Something to think about. We don't need to decide tonight, but it's a question I have because I know there's we're in one. Anyway, it's just a question I have.
Okay, we could talk offline. I mean, has it been sent to the Department of State?
No, the town board hasn't
You have
held
to do
a
the
public
public
hearing
hearings.
Oh, gotcha.
yet. Yeah, I'm just thinking sequencing and timeline wise, that's all. But we'll figure it out.
And I don't know whether their goal is to open a public hearing on the 12th, close the public hearing on the 12th, or whether there will be enough public comment that it would be in their best interest to continue a public hearing. So we can't really at this point predict that it's a done and deal, done and dusted in one meeting. So I guess we'll just have to take it meeting by meeting to see where it goes.
Yep.
Who will be referred to?
And may I also say that, if I remember correctly, where we last left off our review of this in November, as I recall, there was still materials that were outstanding that were not part of the application package. And so, once it comes back to us for official review, we're probably going to be going back to where we were and saying, do we have a complete application, what's missing, what don't we have? So I don't want us to leave here tonight thinking this is over and done with, but Jim's just trying to make us aware that it will be, it's on its way back.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah, and you do need to be ready for it.
Their notice that they put out announcing the public hearing made it seem as though there were new plans that had been filed in March of this year. And on the website, I wasn't able to find anything that was more recent than August of last year. So I don't know if I'm looking in the wrong place or what.
We can try and find out. I know that there has been, we've gone from it being a private road to the potential of it being a town road to back to being a private road again. So there's been discussions and negotiations between the town board and the applicant in this interim space while they've been working through the local law. So you make a good point, and I would hope that that would all be presented at the public hearing next week.
Well, I think that also, when it comes back to the board, a presentation should be made to the planning board to bring you all up to date on what's changed and what's happened since you last.
And the provision of information that we asked for before we abandoned the process before. As I believe it, we didn't really have landscape plans or other things like that. I do believe will still be within our purview, so I don't know. But the last thing, I think Jim has had some conversation with Mark, is that correct? About
Yes.
scheduling that combined large site visit to T-Port for the G-scale train. And so Jim?
So Mark would like to see if we can all get together the last week in May.
Which is after Memorial Day.
Right, the 26th is Memorial Day, so we would not do it on Monday. So it would be Tuesday through Friday that week. There was a question, and I have not talked to anyone about this, there was a question if the planning board would like to meet with the ZBA. The ZBA typically meets on a Saturday. They don't do weekend site visits, so I don't know if Saturdays are appealing or open to anyone on the board for consideration or not. If not, then that narrows down the dates for us to go.
Or if it's desirable that all the boards be there together or not, that's a different question. You'd be the ZBA, you'd be HAPAC, you'd be CAB, and you'd be the planning board. Is that too large a group, or does it expedite things? We're just...
Well, you can't really talk about business at the
Correct.
site visit, so it would just be looking together.
Little pods of people walking around.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, would you prefer to schedule it on a weekday, or would you be amenable to a combined site visit on a weekend, which that only gives you, I would assume, Saturday the 31st as an option.
I think so.
My inclination is it gets complicated when you try to get all
Yeah,
those
and
boards.
Gretchen brought up.
I can't do the 31st, so.
Then let's not. It's important that we take our own
And
action.
I was just going to say, Gretchen brought up a good point, because so typically the ZBA, in addition to liking to do it on a weekly, they like to have, although the public hearing already started, though, I think.
No, they haven't.
But it started. I think it's continued.
I think
They
continue to
opened
have
it.
the public hearing. I'm gonna,
I was just, sometimes the ZBA likes to do the public hearing before the site visit, so they're understanding what some of the concerns may be, and it would, if there's no meeting in May. I
So
thought
why
they
don't we
would.
just pull it back, and we'll just do a planning board site visit, and we will offer to HAPAC and the CAB, WAC to join. Are there any days, the 27th through the 30th, that don't work for anybody?
And
We're probably
I
looking
would
to
say-
do.
I would say, if you want, you can certainly open it to the ZBA and leave it to the ZBA members.
Right, and so if they have a conflict,
If
they
they'd
can
like
join
to
us.
come.
Okay, Sean?
I'm out of town Monday to Tuesday, so I come back Wednesday. Just as a
You're
heads
talking
up.
about
And
that last weekend.
I'm expecting my department to put out the RIF letters on the 16th. So I may have a lot of time on my hands. If not, I have leave, and I would be willing to.
Can we ask that people to hold late in the day, the 29th and 30th?
Sure.
I don't mean to complicate it, it was like, I'm actually out of town the 29th through the 1st, but the week, in a weekend is.
What time do you get back on the day before?
Let me check my flight. I think it's like midnight.
On the 28th?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, how about 1 AM on the 29th?
Oh, I lied, I'm back on Wednesday.
You're back on Wednesday, the 20th?
I come back midnight of Tuesday.
Can we look at
So if you do
this?
something like 7 a.m. to
6 a.m. on Wednesday sounds great.
You'll be wide awake.
Yeah.
Can we?
Actually, can you pick me up at the airport? I'm flying in all.
All right, absolutely, I'll give you a ride.
Can we propose, say, between 3 and 4 on the afternoon of the 28th? We'll just, to get back to Mark. If you all hold that, if somebody can't make it, then you two can slide over into the ZBA
Yeah, that's
schedule, because there will be another opportunity. So let's tentatively get that in, and then Jim will communicate with everybody.
I'll try and set that up by the end of the week if I can.
Sure. Where's everybody going? We can go offline to discuss that. I think that's it. With that being said, may I have a motion? First, thanks. We've had some, a lot to contend with a few of these applications, and I appreciate your hanging in, and especially your thoughtfulness in regard to some of the things that we want to do to ensure that we're protecting the environment of Rhinebeck. So thanks for, I know you spend a lot of time thinking about it, and I really appreciate it, and appreciate everybody's cooperation. So thanks very much, and with that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries.